full exposure of this story. I was just now
Sure.
kind of going over it a little bit and letting our folks know about the Dominique Moody Safety Act and its connections to Cumberland County a little bit.
Sure.
Of course, you're state representative for District 42, but you heard about this story when you were. Someone was talking about it.
When we were home, are we live on the air?
Yes, you are.
Good morning,
Yes.
good morning, sir. Good morning, Kenny. Good morning, Fayetteville. State Representative Mike Colvin, North Carolina House District 42. And as we'll get right to the subject at hand, the Dominique Moody Safety Act, it began for me, my level of involvement in December of 2025. We were on break, the North Carolina General Assembly, and I was contacted by family members of the Moody family, to whom I'm well acquainted with here from our local community. In fact, young Dominique Moody was born here in Fayetteville, Cape Valley Medical Center, when the family resided off of Murchison Road on Nicky Avenue. And being acquainted with many members of the family, you know, they brought their concerns, and I attended the funeral ceremony over at the Unity Funeral Services off of Cliffdale Road, operated by Mr. J. Vernon Peterson. And while attending that funeral and of course, bringing some of the experiences from my professional life into this, whenever there's the case of course, any transition of life, but the transition of a life of a child due to abuse, neglect, in case of a homicide, really fostered the motivation to pursue some solutions.
And so let me pause you for a second. Put this microphone in here because I'm old. It's going to pick up now. So now that we have you really mic'd up good in on our podcast, if you're joining us now on our podcast, you can pick that up on my Facebook page and also on my YouTube channel as well. This is State Representative Mike Colvin of District 42. His last name is familiar only for one reason.
Only for one reason.
Yeah, he is who he is. Because the mayor of Fayetteville happens to be your brother.
That's correct.
And do you guys rib each other about that? I mean, in terms of who's known the best?
Well, he came to the world first. So he came.
Oh, so
to the
he's
world
your older brother.
He is. He came to the world first, and he came to the community first. So therefore,
right. Well, you know, we were originally going to schedule this for last Thursday, and it would have been, you would have come right on after your brother. You said, no, I don't want to do that, which I understand the separation of state and church and state. Or
church and state.
You know, we don't want to cause any confusion about what this is. This is a separate entity that has a base in Fayetteville, but the child, Dominique Moody, actually died in Mecklenburg County as the. Well, look, we're getting ready to take a little break here, and I want to make sure we get this story exactly right in terms of the Fayetteville connection and how it ended up moving to Mecklenburg County, and then authority. That's where she died. She died in Mecklenburg County, still in the auspices of the Department of Social Services.
So it was a kinship guardianship,
right?
Transfer.
Okay, we will explain all that when we come back here. I don't want to get too far off time here, Kenny. Right now.
Producer Audible, we're going for weather. Are you ready?
Yeah, okay. All right, we've got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast right now with Rachel Dunson.
Today will be cloudy with off and on rain and a high of 82. Tonight the rain will come to an end and then turn partly cloudy with a low of 69. And Tuesday will be partly cloudy with a few stray showers and a high of 88. Temperatures quickly rebound back into the upper 90s by Wednesday, leading to another hot and humid end to the week. That is your Fayetteville forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much. We're holding steady right now, 72 degrees in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and Fort Bragg. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC.
This report is sponsored by Blindster.com.
Hi, I'm Kyle at Blindster.com. Tired of overpriced blinds? Blindster makes custom blinds simple and affordable. You measure at home, install yourself, and save big. No retail store markups, just custom blinds guaranteed to fit. Blindster.com.
When was the last time your CPA brought you a strategy that dramatically saved you taxes? This is Roger Harris, president of Whitehorse Financial. The two biggest robbers of wealth are debt and taxes. Our team of tax attorneys and tax planners help successful people legally pay less tax. If you have over $1 million in retirement accounts, or you're selling a business or real estate, we may be able to help. Call 910-339-2625 for a 15-minute discovery call, or visit whitehorse-financial.com.
If you have unfiled taxes or are in debt to the IRS, this is important news. Did you know the IRS has programs specifically designed to help people struggling with tax debt? Powerful tax assistance programs that can save you thousands if you qualify. No one knows these programs better than the experts at Optima Tax Relief, America's most trusted tax resolution firm, A-rated by the Better Business Bureau. Their award-winning tax attorneys and licensed professionals have resolved over $3 billion of tax debt for their clients. One call to Optima can start the process, helping to put an end to your worries about wage garnishment, asset seizure, and other aggressive IRS actions. Find the best options to solve your tax problems. Call the experts at Optima Tax Relief today for a free consultation.
Call 800-896-8155. 800-896-8155. 800-896-8155.
Optima Tax Relief.
Some restrictions apply. For complete details, please visit OptimaTaxRelief.com.
Good morning, Fayetteville with Gilbert Bays. On WFNZ, News Talk 640 AM and now at 103.5 HD2. Your information crossroads, WFNZ.
Give them a little something to talk about.
News Talk 640 WFNZ, Mike Colvin, the man, the legend, the myth, in Studio One with me. I've known Mike for a little bit. You know, a lot of things, we're talking about the Dominic Moody Safety Act. We're going to talk about that again, but a lot of people don't know that you were the behind-the-scenes person in a number of different campaigns, and including your brothers.
Oh, yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And what made you switch to say, hey, I'm going to get in front of the camera?
Well, you know, we've discussed this before. It had been over the course of some years, maybe 5 to 7 years. And, of course, you're very familiar with my predecessor, Representative Marvin Lucas. And it was sort of a recruitment process there. He saw things in me, and he said, hey, I think you'll be good for this role. Because, of course, you know, all public service positions have their distinctive roles. And at the state legislature, it requires a little bit of some of the same attributes that's required when working on behind the scenes of a political campaign or as a policy advisor. It allows you an opportunity to not be on the forefront all the time, but to kind of have a moment to prepare yourself and observe things that the frontliners, so to speak, may not be able to see. And it also gives you the opportunity to collaborate with others and work with others and just sharing the challenges of policymaking.
All right, so this bill, Senate Bill 280, 113-0, bipartisan support. I mean, talk about the bill, and were you one of the authors?
Yes. So in December, the idea over our Christmas break, because again, as mentioned, you know, in my role as a legislator, it requires homework. So I had some time over the Christmas holiday, and to pick up where we left off, I was contacted by members of the Moody and Melvin and extended families, and I went to attend the funeral service because Dominique Moody was her funeral ceremony was here in Cumberland County in Fayetteville, and after going to the service to pay my respects to the family, conversations began, and I began to learn more about the tragic circumstances surrounding this incident. And to be frank with you, it was alarming because as a funeral service professional, I have worked on and in severe circumstances of child neglect cases, which resulted in homicide. So this was something that I took a well thought out approach to trying to address solutions. Also thought of a way that would help it, that could possibly, and I was fortunate enough for it to work out that way, to elicit the support of
of members of the General Assembly in both chambers, both the House and the Senate, from both parties. In fact, you mentioned bipartisan, but in fact, the success of this policy was an act of tripartisan participation, because now in the North Carolina General Assembly, there were recent developments where we have a couple unaffiliated candidates now following the primaries.
Well, I want to kind of just read a little bit of this. Before Dominic Moody became the name on this bill, she was a little girl born January 20th, 2019, here in Cumberland County. Later moved to Mecklenburg County. Like every child in North Carolina, Dominique Moody should have grown up in a safe home surrounded by love, protection, and opportunity. But that wasn't the case. The description of this, years of abuse and neglect that preceded Moody's death, and the case should force lawmakers to examine how repeated warning signs can be missed. And so this was a kinship
guardianship transfer.
Talk about that and how Dominic ended up in Mecklenburg County.
Well, there were some things, I guess we would refer to as social, some of the social determinants that upon her birth, the mother, the family, I assume, thought that she would be in better care in a stay in Mecklenburg County with, in fact, what is her aunt.
Right,
and
so she moved from here
to Mecklenburg County
right.
with the family member.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this case is currently a pending court case, so I'm careful about speaking to the details of the case. And in fact, it has escalated to a point where the family has hired attorney Ben Crump, renowned attorney Ben Crump, to represent the family in this case of abuse and neglect and this systemic failure that led to the tragic circumstances.
Well, I can speak to it because I did the story on it, and I talked with the relatives about the neglect that was there, and there were signs and repeated visits by the Department of Social Services and documented abuse that they should have been red flags, yellow flags, purple flags.
And law enforcement. In fact, law enforcement had, and once listeners go in and maybe take a deeper dive into the subject, because I know we're on limited time, but law enforcement had been called out to the home more than 50 times, during the time of her stay there at the residence. She passed away. She was 6 years old. She passed away weighing 27 pounds. She was often restricted in her neglect. She was abused. And it's just a tragic story. There were markings and scars of rodents and bites and insect infestation, and she was being kept in a dog kennel. So this was a very impactful.
Well, it's disturbing.
It is.
And you say impactful. It's disturbing, and you wonder, how can an official of the state, either the Department of Social Services, either witness or have knowledge of this, even law enforcement coming out to the house on 50 occasions or multiple occasions?
And as I had began working on this case, on this legislation, the child welfare and child protective services system is strained. We have a growing population now, not providing any type of excuse, because there's no excuse when a life is lost due to negligence. But in defense of our social service workers, they have a heavy caseload, and what we discovered as we began to look at building policies and preventative measures, there was a need for significant investment. There was a need for some oversight. Things in the Dominique Moody Act enhanced the processing system for the intake process. There's funds appropriated to track cases of abuse and neglect on a publicly available dashboard system now. There's a creation of region of jobs and positions. There's an investment in the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services to help support, the county workers in this. And, it required reaching out not only across the aisle to colleagues and to members of the General Assembly and lawmakers, but, also contacting the professionals, in that role to get their insight.
Well, and I think part of the issue is that we lose track from county to county when a child is moved from one Department of Social Services venue to another. There's not enough transfer, or I guess questions asked. Well, what is this child coming from, and where is this child going? Give example here. State reviewers found that 4 of 5 reports involving Moody's home that were screened out without any other action being taken because the information met legal definition of abuse and neglect. So that information should be passed on. Now, the North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services also found broader problems in Mecklenburg County in terms of the child's welfare practice. In a review of 122 unrelated records, the department found intake workers failed to ask significant questions in 52% of intakes. Files lacked required notification to law enforcement and district attorneys in 36 of the cases involving possible criminal child abuse. And safety plans were adequate in only 43% of the cases. Face-to-face contact with children occurred at the correct frequency of just 48% of the cases, and 58% of the cases lacked all the required components of quality supervisory oversight. So, that's in Mecklenburg County. That's not Cumberland County. That's in Mecklenburg County. But then we got 100 counties here.
We have 100 counties, and we're the third fastest growing state. Third fastest growing state in the country. So
Sure.
therefore, the reality is those that relocate to live here and reside here in North Carolina, our families, our children, our families that need the aid of social services. And so this was something that, we had to address. And, with spearheading the idea and the idea being born over the holidays now, I don't have a magic pen or anything like that. I immediately, after I developed the framework, elicited the support of legislators with their expertise. The primary sponsors on this bill, they were, we have Representative Carla Cunningham from Mecklenburg County. She reached out to me. Representative Alan Chesser, which is a former law enforcement professional, and he's very familiar with child neglect and abuse. Representative Donnie Lambert of Forsyth County, and House and Senate leadership. This was something that everyone saw the need to try and come up with some type of solution to prevent this from happening again.
Well, it just like, I talked with Deanne Gertis with the Phoenix Project here in terms of protecting women and from rape and abuse and sexual assault. And, you take out a protective order or whatever it might be, but it is just a piece of paper, in terms of saying you should not go and be within a certain distance and you shouldn't see a person. But still, we still see women abused by people who break the court orders and that type of thing. And hopefully the same doesn't happen with this bill that's put in place now, that some action will actually be taken to give some meat to the bone here so that the Department of Social Services in every county, doesn't come up with these numbers that I'm seeing here in terms of how you take a look at the cases and what information should be passed on to law enforcement and even law enforcement. Everybody is overwhelmed, in terms of personnel, staffing, in terms of sheriff's deputies and law enforcement agencies, and mostly Department of Social Services in terms of not having enough personnel.
Yes.
Brenda Jackson just said that, because of the way the county budget was set up, she was losing some people. And so we got to put a priority into place to really take into consideration the amount of work that these departments have to do.
And yes, sir. So, and you mentioned Mrs. Brenda Jackson, and she immediately I reached out to her about it because she has years of experience. Her heart is in it. She's dedicated to the work. But the reality is we already are in a situation, and as I mentioned, the population, our DSS workers, they have a heavy workload, and a lot of them are overworked. So what this policy does is kind of offer support to that system that's there. And, it requires the state to engage more. Hopefully it provides more resources for the professionals to do their jobs. And if we could save one life, but the truth of the matter is, we see the news and we hear these horrific stories. And, unfortunately, these things will happen. But just taking some, I feel privileged to, in my role of public service, to be able to lend a hand to offering some type of preventative measure.
Well, we appreciate the work that you and your colleagues have done in bringing this bill forward and getting it passed and everything. And I have an occasion to talk with Chief District Court Judge Tony King in here just about every other Wednesday. And we were talking about guardian ad items, and they're pointed to for children who can't speak for themselves. And I asked her, I said, based on the caseload, how many cases does a guardian ad litem normally has? She said about 200. So when you have one person looking into 200 cases, and that's just one worker, right. Multiply that by 10 or 15 or 20, how many guardian ad litems you have who are attorneys, and some are volunteers. Right. It is easy for a child, you would say, to fall through the cracks. If I got to get to my next appointment, I've checked the house, I think everything's okay, everything's fine, okay, we'll see you next week, or I don't know how these meetings go. But when you're not putting eyeballs on a kid, and right. you and if you are and you're not reporting it to the next level, as a social worker or a guardian ad litem or whatever your position is, and law enforcement is not moving with criminal charges, I mean, I hope this bill really adds some meat to what you're doing.
It does, I'm grateful for my colleagues and for everybody's willingness to kind of to lend a hand in addressing this problem. But it will offer support. It changes the child intake process. I mentioned the monitoring system. And, it provides a child escalation team where cases of abuse and neglect are monitored more closely. And more so, it allowed us to come together and it helped kind of redefine the purpose of what we all are in public service for.
Now, the reason you're in here is because this bill recently passed.
It recently passed. It was adopted into the conference report. It passed the House unanimously. It went over to it went to the Senate, and then it came back over to the House. It passed unanimously. It was adopted into a conference report, which was a part of the larger state budget, Senate Bill 257.
So when the state budget was passed, that means this was passed in the state budget, and funds are appropriated to help put those measures in place. And hopefully, we can save some lives. State Representative Mike Colvin, District 42. Appreciate you taking time to come in here in person, eyeball to eyeball. Be on Good Morning Fayetteville.
Always good to see you.
Well, now my favorite part, I get to give you the boot, like I do with your brother. But every Thursday, I say, give you the boots.
But let's do it again soon. And always good to see you, and always grateful to kind of reach out and make communication with the community.
Well, stay where you are. I'm going to take a picture of you before you leave right now. Right now, we got Fayetteville's most dependable forecast with CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsey.
Today will be cloudy with off and on rain and a high of 82. Tonight the rain will come to an end and then turn partly cloudy with a low of 69. And Tuesday will be partly cloudy with a few stray showers and a high of 88. Temperatures quickly rebound back into the upper 90s by Wednesday, leading to another hot and humid end to the week. That is your Fayetteville forecast. I'm CBS 17 meteorologist Rachel Dunsing.
All right, Rachel, thank you so much. Right now, 73 in Fayetteville, Hope Mills, and also at Fort Bragg. You're listening to News Talk 640 WFNC.
More bang for your buck at DW Auto Dealers of Fayetteville. DW, Fayetteville's #1 buy here, pay here. No credit needed, no credit check. Bankruptcy, okay. Fast and easy. A bank loan? Forget about it. DW Auto Dealers is the bank. DW Auto Dealers. On Facebook, sell your car. DW Auto Dealers buys cars for top dollar. Must have clean title. Get cash on the spot. 910-339-0020. DW Auto Dealers of Fayetteville, 5306 Rayford Road.
When was the last time your CPA brought you a strategy that dramatically saved you taxes? This is Roger Harris, president of Whitehorse Financial. The two biggest robbers of wealth are debt and taxes. Our team of tax attorneys and tax planners help successful people legally pay less tax. If you have over $1 million in retirement accounts, or you're selling a business or real estate, we may be able to help. Call 910-339-2625 for a 15-minute discovery call, or visit whitehorse-financial.com.
Bass Air Conditioning, the name